Well, let's get straight down to it. We only have 30 minutes with Mr. Vinod Khosla, and I know you all want to hear from him. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us all the way from Silicon Valley. Mr. Khosla, welcome. We're talking at a time when there is so much uncertainty, whether it is a war with the cascading impact that we're seeing in the equity markets. The bazooka from the US Fed is likely to be dialed down maybe faster than what everybody expected. I'm talking about the interest rate hikes. Tech stocks have fallen, investors have fallen out of love with tech stocks. For all the founders, startup employees, everyone from the ecosystem, what's your advice to them? To write it out, what to do?
Now, these are very important events, the war especially, the economy, the pandemic. One has to acknowledge they're real and they're short-term things to get through. But in the end, what entrepreneurship is about, what Unstoppable India should be about, is optimizing for 2030, in which case we have no idea what wars will or will not be on, what the interest rates will be, what the economy will be. There are constants we can work on that will make a huge difference to 2030. And I'm told you have a large audience up to maybe 20,000 people. And 20 people out of that 20,000 can completely change India's position in the world and welfare in general. We've seen this over and over again, and that makes me pretty excited to be speaking to this audience and hopefully inciting, maybe instigating some of them to make the change they want to see happen.
Because you and I are supposed to talk about moonshots, right? And that's what I thought I'll begin the conversation, because right now with the uncertainty, the bootstrap startups will be like, oh no, I missed my turn. The global liquidity run may be coming to a close. Those who are funded, what should they be doing? Extending the cash runway. So once again, as they cut out the noise, with the fears that might be there, inflation, consumption being impacted, economies that may go down and slow down, they are, of course, scared.
Well, there's good reason to be scared. The life of an entrepreneur is a roller coaster where the highs are high and the lows are low. But really good entrepreneurs powered through this. I'll give you one simple example. When the economy is bad, when funding is tight, there's far less competition. So the really good entrepreneurs do well. It takes them longer. They have to go slower. They have less money available. You have to persevere through it and have more persistence and stamina. But I don't think in the end, it will affect the fundamental nature of the moonshot startups that can change India and have a large impact on the world. And both those are now possible, have always been possible, but I think this is a particularly good time for all that to happen.
As they say, seize the moment, right? And that's what many of the entrepreneurs in the room and our audience members will want to do. Now, Mr. Khosla, can I ask you, what's got you excited these days? If I were to ask you, we know your views when it comes to healthcare and so many other sectors. For you, what's the moonshot thinking at the moment?
Well, this is the exciting part. Almost every part of the economy is open for radical innovation. So it's always been open for incremental innovation, do something slightly better, a slightly better app, a slightly better commerce site. But I think the world has gotten to a place where every fundamental thing we work on is open to radical innovation. So across the board, if you look at it, climate is a big issue. I think of it as a major opportunity to improve efficiency in the economy. When you increase the carbon efficiency of the economy or use other resources than oil and gas, you're actually making yourself and your country more competitive. What we've learned with the Ukraine war is you're also making it more secure. because you're not dependent on large supplies of oil and other things from other parts of the world. So resource efficiency is both a national security thing, as well as a much more as well as part of building a much more competitive economy. Decarbonization and not being dependent on oil and gas, which have been the cause of more misery globally than almost any other item we know of. Maybe salt was such a factor a few hundred years ago when people fought wars over salt, but oil and gas has been a major problem, and we can't get off it overnight, but we can get off it over 10 years. And by 2030, which is sort of the target I think of today, fusion energy could make energy cheap and plentiful. If that happened, water would be cheap and plentiful. Agriculture would become different. So there's that. You know, in healthcare, what I realize is you can't train enough new doctors to have high quality services, especially specialists, whether they are gastroenterologists, oncologists, or psychiatrists. But you can have technology leverage what we have and make those much more broadly available at much cheaper price points. So it's one of those areas where cost and quality come together. Lower cost means higher quality and more accessibility. So I'm very optimistic about that. Construction suddenly open to entrepreneurs in very, very unusual ways with new materials. You know, it's always surprised me. There was a report recently that the world is using 100 billion tons of material a year. That's 15 tons per person on the planet. And if we could cut that down, what I call dematerializing society, could you make buildings much lighter with new materials, use less cement and less steel? One would make them cheaper and more accessible and less carbon footprint too at the same time in a more sustainable way. So that's an opportunity. Crypto is very, very hot in India. India has an opportunity to really pioneer that whole area. So that's very exciting.
Are you excited by Web3? Is because everybody's talking about it as the next big thing. So we know your views about healthcare. You've talked to us about sustainability. Are you one of those that is also going after Web3? This is the future?
Well, let's be careful. You know, any new technology has good uses and bad uses.
Yeah.
If crypto encourages terrorist funding or weapons trading or other illegal activities, it will be shut down by government. So I'm a fan of using the best of the blockchain and crypto and Web3 to create a world that's compliant with society's laws. So KYC and AML, two concepts against money laundering and knowing your customer, are very, very important concepts for the financial system. Crypto can be compatible with that or be incompatible. And I think once it becomes compatible, that part of the crypto world will grow rapidly and start to replace traditional pieces of traditional finance.
It could enforce currencies, the way India is also wanting to do. The Reserve Bank of India is, working on the digital rupee, for example. I know the countries have to come out with it, but can that ever be a solution?
So there are two different words. One is digital currencies, so it's done by the state, and so it's the digital rupee in the case of India. That has many useful purposes. But there is also great value in the blockchain. And there are different purposes. I believe there will be different currencies and different blockchains fundamentally for different purposes. So if you're doing video gaming, you need something very different than if you're dealing with billions of dollars of currency value. And so I do think you'll see both the Bitcoin and state currencies that India and China and others are looking at, and there will be other blockchains. Today we see things like Solana and others which serve a particular purpose. So I do expect we'll see many currencies, many digital currencies, and they will each have a purpose. But I do believe for rapid growth to happen, they have to be compliant with societal laws. Not necessarily societal control, but societal laws. So distributed control is a very important concept, but societal laws, I think the crypto world will have to be compatible with. You can't have it be used for drug trading or terrorism or other bad purposes.
So tell me something. Has Khosla Ventures or Mr. Vinod Khosla himself invested in cryptos?
Well, we do invest, probably not as aggressively in the speculative side as some people do, but we do invest in things that serve a large social purpose. So I'll give you an example, and this is a 4-year-old example. We are building a telecom network in a distributed fashion. It's called the Helium Network, and they have the token related to the Helium Network. Individuals who contribute their access points, think of them as your Wi-Fi network at home, contributed to a national network, get tokens. That's a very good use for tokens, and we think we can offer network connections for devices at a 10th to 100th the price that AT&T can. And that's a very useful use of the crypto world, and the kinds of uses I think we'll see more and more of if we become compliant with societal rules and regulations.
It's great to know what Vinod Khosla's views are when it comes to Web3 and cryptos. And before I jump ship, told about cryptos, but do you have a Metaverse avatar?
I don't have a Metaverse avatar, but let me say the following. I think there's a very important characteristic about the world of Web3 that is not understood broadly. If you look at a Facebook, there's a network effect.
You mean Meta?
I mean Meta. Yes, thank you for correcting me. There's a network effect. When you see Amazon, there's a network effect. The more the buyers, the more the sellers, you get a very virtuous cycle of increasing value to everybody as more people participate. Now that's been Web 2.0. In Web 3.0, tokens can take the side of one part of this network. So you can create these networks with tokens and create network effects without needing to compete in the same traditional way as you do in Web 2.0. Early participants in the network get higher value through higher value tokens or tokens that will appreciate much more. So that's a useful characteristic to set up new large enterprises, whether it's a new Twitter or a new Meta or a new Amazon. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to do very, very interesting things. There's also very low transaction costs. There's very low central control. All these things will help a lot.
And of course, it has to use less energy as well. There could be a whole new, opportunity over there if we could get blockchains to use less energy. So, Khosla, I'm going to move on from this.
Obviously, there are blockchains that are geared towards less energy consumption than the Bitcoin blockchain.
And Bitcoin, of course. I'm going to move on now.
Though, to be honest, even the Bitcoin blockchain is working hard on reducing its footprint and reducing its carbon footprint. Innovation and creativity are hard to predict, but they will happen if there's a large need. And I think there's a large set of needs that can be served by the crypto world. as can the needs in the healthcare world or the construction world or the world of agriculture or transportation is a very exciting new area for a country like India. All those are great possibilities, and we're doing things in all those areas, not just traditional software.
Yeah. So that's a lot that the audience can soak in and know what we can call the sunrise sectors, the new age sectors. But Mr. Khosla,
well, let me give you a couple of very exciting examples. Impossible Foods is creating meat the taste of meat, whether it's sausage or hamburgers or
eggs also,
lamb or seafood. Those kinds of technologies can now be done with 80 to 90% less land use. Land is always a scarce commodity, and 80 to 90% less water use. These are very exciting things because you can make the world's resources and India's resources go so much further. So there's food that can be done much more effectively than it's done today. Producing cattle and lamb and meat is hard and very land expensive and expensive otherwise. Then they can be cheaper, smaller carbon footprint, less water footprint, and less land. That's very exciting. At the same time, you can make, at the other end is enterprise software. There's so many things that are so much more efficient now.
Problems to be solved, right? And with the change as the only constant. So tell me, Mr. Khosla, you must be getting so many pitches every day, and your team must be getting. So let me ask you the one question, which I know everyone in the audience wants to know. What does it take to get Vinod Khosla and Khosla Ventures to invest?
Well, what matters is addressing very large markets. So there's lots of plans we get that are very attractive businesses, but they aren't large enough for us. We want the really large transformative businesses. We don't do business just for the sake of business because lots of other people do business ventures better than we do. What we do is when large technology breakthrough can change the paradigm in an area, whether it's in the blockchain world, like the helium example I gave you, or the nutrition world, a great portfolio company, Healthify.me out of India, doing extremely well. But they're using AI, which we haven't talked about much, to make nutritional service cost effective. And I find that really exciting because AI in general will replace a lot of expertise at all levels. And that will multiply resources for a country like India and the whole planet. So Healthify.me uses both nutritionists, but also AI plus nutritionists and AI only to offer nutrition advice that it wouldn't be possible to offer without the AI. And that's an exciting example out of India that I love.
We in India are new when it comes to startup ecosystem, and especially the IPOs. Our stock markets are frustrated that these new age companies are not delivering profits, that they're not giving a premium to cash, they're not, that they don't realize that earnings are a slave to, that valuations are a slave of earnings. So I want to ask Vinod Khosla, how to evaluate these companies. We've had a great IPO pipeline, and we will have more IPOs this year as well.
So first, let me say it's very, very promising to me that there's so many companies doing well in India, ready to do IPOs. Excuse me. That's a really exciting possibility, and they serve as great role models, and they get other entrepreneurs to follow their lead. So role models are very important. And for the first time in India, you're starting to go see examples of companies that can go public that are started in India. And you're starting to see companies that are started in India for global markets, not just Indian markets. Both are very, very exciting. Now, this question, could you repeat your question? I
My
think I
question was
got
that
it.
in India, they're not everybody while is talking about, oh, look at the Amazon IPO. There's only been one Amazon, right, on this planet so far. So while it's all very nascent for us, our stock markets are demanding, it seems, that these companies deliver profits, that these companies give a premium to cash, that they must understand that they are a slave of earnings.
Well, so I'm a big believer you can create value in other ways than profits. Okay. And the markets will recognize that. This is why you get the valuations you do. Foreign listings are always an opportunity if local markets don't appreciate the value you're creating. Creating value is different than creating profits. Long term, you have to create profits, but for a very, very long time, Amazon chose not to create profits. And let me tell you why. To me, a company creating profits is a company admitting they have no good investment opportunities. If you have great opportunities for growth in your business, you should never have profits. Invest it back in growth so you build more assets. So value can be created in cash streams, or they can be created in assets. Whether the asset is a brand, whether the asset is a customer, whether the asset is more new markets. If Amazon had focused on profits, they wouldn't have created AWS. And so, to me, high growth opportunities should not have profits. They should, and in fact, when they do, I always say it's an admission that they don't have great growth opportunities. Now, at some point, you have to create profits or other assets. Real estate development would not be profits; they'd be assets. In crypto, there's a lot of assets to be created. Networks, for example, are a very valuable asset. So I think there's a balance between the 2 points of view, and there's a timeline difference. Too much of the stock market is too focused on very short-term profits, and I think that's unhealthy for long-term development of strong global brands. And I encourage all the entrepreneurs to take the long view, not the short view, and look for investors who will support that long view. And there's investors who do and investors who don't.
So this is going to be my final question to you. And I was delighted to hear just before we started the session, and I know our audience will be as well. There's a new podcast series coming from Khosla Ventures, a new podcast. What's it about? Can you give us a teaser?
Well, I'm a big believer in the power of ideas and the power that 20 people in your audience can cause dramatic change in India. So the podcast is about instigators of change, the people who explore new ideas, the people who come up with them, and the people who invest in them. This ecosystem, and Silicon Valley is not so much a place as a mindset and a culture. So my hope is by telling those stories, we encourage more of your audience and other audiences around the world to participate in this innovation economy, the radical innovation economy, to spark something inside people so they can have the courage to take on what is a hard world of startups. My hope is many things that seem impossible will become possible. People are always skeptical, but my hope is that we can encourage more of these people to participate in this innovation economy and this change economy, and cause change to happen for the good, for society and for themselves.
Well, here's hoping for that. You're going to have an audience of more than 20,000, and I'm sure 20 of them will be able to do that. Just look at the kind of innovation that we've started seeing in India. Our entrepreneurs are not building just for India, they're building for the world. And I think that is what has really changed during the pandemic.
Yeah, let me leave by saying, in your audience is somebody who'll start the next Google, the next Meta, the next Amazon, the next Uber. All these are possible, not only companies for the Indian market, but for the global markets, and really help improve the country, really align with the theme of Unstoppable India. Thank you very much.
Thank you.